my big question was, what's the point of this? Like, there's a better version of this story already. So why do this other than as a cash in? I think people are too quick to call things cash grabs, but I think this is exactly what this is.
Hello, everyone. We are back. I'm here with my boys Daniel and Hervé.
Right?
Yo.
The Eye of the Storm podcast. How you guys been?
Good.
You look
Good.
knackered, bro. You look knackered.
Running on empty, but we go.
Alright, so let's just get straight into it. Actually, no. Question. Best recent thing we've all watched. Let's go.
So I didn't find anything really good this week, but the most interesting watch that I had this week was Black Adam. I actually watched it now, and special shout out to Now TV for putting a double negative in their user agreement. I had to read it 3 times to make sure what it was I was agreeing to, but that's a different story. I have now watched Black Adam, and I wouldn't say it's good, but it is interesting. I think it's probably one of the most pretentious movies I've seen, superhero movies I've seen in a while, because there's this huge gap between how smart it is and how smart it thinks it is. But I really liked the action sequences. They really sold like how much like primal power was going around these characters, and they felt more like a force of nature or almost like gods of antiquity as opposed to superheroes, and putting those characters in a different context was interesting. But every time somebody started talking, it only got steadily worse. Not a good movie, but it's interesting. Like, they had some interesting ideas in there. They just didn't execute on them in an intelligent or functioning way at all. But it was interesting to see how somebody, it's like a 14-year-old trying to write a political manifesto. Like, they have ideas, but they don't know how to express them or how to think them through. That's kind of my impression. That's kind of my bottom line of Black Adam.
Oh, you finally watched the film which everyone hated.
It's actually, I think it deserves a little bit more credit for once. For example, it actually tries to be smart about things. It tries to be political. It just doesn't do it well. I think this whole idea of superheroes appearing in places other than the United States, I think is interesting. And I think a character would be perceived differently in a Middle Eastern country than in the US, for example. And it tries to do that, but I don't think it's very smart about it. And I also think the action sequences are better than people give it credit for, and I like a lot of the character designs and things like that. I think it's just the plot that's nonsense.
I think they'll mainly disappointed with the final fight scene, because I know I was, but yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. I hear it. So, well, hopefully, I want James Gunn to try and attempt to, I want him to bring that back, and I
don't think that movie is very accurate to the comics very much. I don't really know Black Adam as a comic character, but I think just the version that they showed in this movie, I think, is interesting. It just wasn't smart enough to actually deliver on the premise.
Well, in terms of what I watched a film which came out on Friday, Wicked Little Letters. Now, we all know, well, I don't know who knows, but I'm not really a big fan of the whole, comedy genre. I'm not against it. Like, I'll definitely, I'll be down to watch it, but it's not my go-to when I'm doing a movie marathon. But I saw the trailer of this one. I said, yeah, this one is really good. Quick, synopsis. Small family in a small English town, I believe. Get wicked little letters, as in disrespectful letters, mainly aimed at the daughter. And the family, well, mainly the dad, believes that it's their neighbor, and it's got a lot to do is because she's Irish. I think this is based on a true story. I don't know if they were joking about it, but I think this might have been based on a true story, which was pretty much forgotten, lost in history. But yeah, so and so they blame her. She gets arrested. Now she's on trial, and then a police officer and a couple of friends try and investigate who's actually creating these letters, send them out, because they send it to the family and they send it to other people around town as well. Very disrespectful letters, very funny. This was a good watch. It kind of got me back into. I used to watch comedies, so it's kind of got me in that comedy mood. And I'm actually thinking of watching the movie which Harry wants us to watch so bad, which I did watch before, but after 10 minutes I took it off. It was Banshee or something, was it?
Oh, the Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah. I just couldn't get into it. So after watching that movie, Wicked Little Lies, I said, yeah, I'm gonna give Banshees of Ed Sheeran. Was it Ed Sheeran or?
I would actually
Yeah, the Banshees of Ed Sheeran. Yes, that's what this is.
It's not Ed Sheeran. Is it?
I would actually recommend watching No Hard Feelings above that one. If
No
you
hard feelings.
good
That's not
movie.
Oh, I watched that one today. Hated it.
You hate
Oh,
no
yeah.
way. Oh, what? Why?
it's no hard feelings.
Yeah, it's hard to pin down exactly. I think it tries to be about something, but isn't really, or it's kind of confused about what it is about, and the individual scenes are not wacky enough or funny enough to really carry them by themselves. It really wants to be a kind of heartfelt movie that talks about important issues, but it doesn't really manage it. I don't think the premise is thought through well enough or executed nearly well enough to really hold together.
Daniel, man. Like I personally found the comedy in the movie hilarious. I love the comedy in the movie. And I understand what you're saying about like the story and like and kind of like some of the themes that they try to explore in it. But in my opinion, it's not meant to do it really that well. It's just kind of meant to be there and kind of give it a little bit of heart. Like with all the comedy, it's just meant to have like a kind of like a bit of a heartfelt conclusion. It's not meant to be really done that well. So I didn't really like care too much about how they executed it. Is it like, did I care enough about the characters where they've gone on this journey and they've reached the end, and at the end point, you know, where they're at, do I kind of care enough? And I was like, yeah, you know, I get. So yeah.
I just think like you can either be about important topics or you can be just a raunchy comedy, and it doesn't really do either all that terribly well. Like the raunchy comedy part is not really nearly raunchy enough or funny enough, and the talking about important issues part is not thought through enough. They would have needed to put in a lot more effort into figuring out what it was they were trying to say in the first place. So it's kind of like this halfway thing where it does both a little bit, but not really. At least that was my takeaway from that movie.
Yeah. We'll agree to disagree on that one because that was one of my favorite comedies from last year. But okay.
Check out the trailer.
I feel like that's like one of the first times that me and Daniel have actually disagreed on the movie. But okay.
Wow.
Everything.
Yeah.
Guys, you're here. You just experienced an iconic moment. Usually these two are always against me, but don't worry. Let's get. Herman, what was a good thing that you watched? What the best recent thing you've seen?
Best recent thing, I rewatched Dune for the conversation that's coming out next Monday, I believe. Again, it's you know kind of like space opera type of movie, whatever. You know, it's about there's actually how would you describe Dune? Because like I wouldn't know how to like kind of best describe the movie. Daniel, I'm gonna let you do it because it's your expertise.
It's kind of hard to summarize. It's basically a story about heroism and hero worship gone awry. Basically, that's not really apparent from the first half from part one, because a lot of that is setting things up. But you know, the main character is very much a chosen one character in like 3 different ways, and in part 2 and in the further movies, if they're being made, we'll see basically where that leads, where that takes him, and how basically ideas of hero worship not only don't always are kind of hollow, but also can develop a life of their own and can destroy the people who are ostensibly benefiting from them. So in the movie, like he's part of this eugenics breeding program that's supposed to bring about the psychic space messiah, and he's a candidate for having fulfilled the prophecy. He's been trained as a human supercomputer, and he also is positioned to fulfill the prophecy of the Fremen, right? Where he might be the person who fulfills the prophecy of the leader who emerges and leads them to greatness, basically. So he's all of those things at the same time, which sounds like a terrible story because, you know, chosen one marries two, all of those things. But then it basically, like as the story goes on, it focuses a lot on what actually happens to a person who is that, right? Who has these roles and expectations thrust upon him, and how does a person like that deal with that? That's basically the core of Dune. Again, not really apparent from part one, but I think by part two it will come together.
Perfect.
So
Yeah.
do you just give us a spoiler?
Sorry?
You just give us a spoiler.
To a 60-year-old science fiction novel, yes. But I mean, like, all of that is like he's being set up for that, right? The movie talks about how he's part of this breeding program in the aristocracy, and how he's been trained with all of these special skills, and they talk about how prophecies have been seeded among the Fremen that he is basically has been born to fulfill. Except there's nothing magic going on, right? It's just all social engineering and propaganda and that sort of thing. But he basically is the convergence of all of these historical forces. Like, all of that is in the movie. I'm just saying that's the important part.
Cool. Well, Heavy, I'm guessing that was that all from you, or did you want to add anything else?
No, I mean, like what I enjoyed out of it. Obviously, like Daniel summarized it really well there, because he's like he loves that movie or loves like the book as well. But from my perspective, it's got cinematography in it is world class. It's amazing, amazing political intrigue in there as well. All of the actors completely deliver on their part. The world building in this is excellent as well. Really immerses you in in the world as well. So yeah, fantastic movie all around.
Cool. Looks like it's time for the main event.
Yeah, well, this week's a bit of a change of pace. We're not reviewing a movie. We're reviewing the first episode of the Avatar, The Last Airbender. So, Jonathan, what was your thoughts?
Better than what I expected. The trailer. After watching the trailer, I wasn't looking forward to this. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why. I'm not against child actors, but it's just I just can't. As of recently, well, not recently, as of a couple of years, I'd say 2 or 3 years, I haven't been able to kind of have a good experience watching films where the majority of the cast are child actors. I don't know why, but after watching this film, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this was better than what I expected. Amazing fight scenes. It was more gritty than I thought, because it was more grittier, and I wouldn't say gory, but it was more grittier than I thought I was gonna get. Do you know what I'm saying? Because this is associated with Nickelodeon, man. Nickelodeon's for the kids. So I was like, God damn, like when you've spoiler quickly, but when he, when the what's his name? The guy that was the head of the Fire Nation? Is it what they call it? Fire Nation? What's his name? Well, anyway, him, the king, the lord, whatever. When he burned the guy to a crisp, the earth guy. I'm just gonna call them Earth, Fire, Wind, and freaking water. I don't know how you guys refer them to. I did watch. By the way, I watched Avatar as a kid back in Nickelodeon days. Amazing. So, but yeah, it was very great, especially when he turned him to a crisp. I was like, wow. And the fight scene between the Fire Nations and the Wind. How do you refer to them? Is it Wind Nation or
Airbenders?
Airbenders? The Airbenders.
I think they're the air nomads, I think.
Air nomads, right? The battle between them and near the beginning of the first episode, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, the choreography was amazing. Like, I think the iconic moments were done well. What moments that were supposed to be iconic were done well. Visually, it looked amazing as well. I was like, damn, like even Otto looked amazing. I remember Otto. Otto was one of my guy back in the day when I used to watch him. I loved Otto. And watching him, I was like, wow, they really nailed it. Like, this looks amazing. Like, it just looks really good. Like, visually looks amazing. Like I said, amazing fight scenes. And yeah, overall, it was, now, even though I'm saying this, I'm not saying this was the best thing I've ever watched. I'm not saying I'm going to watch it. I'm going to continue watching because I'm 50-50. But like I said, better than what I expected.
Cool. I mean, as someone that never watched any of the cartoons growing up, I never really saw the hype about it. I mean, I always say anytime that they're trying to adapt Avatar, The Last Airbender, there's always so much hype around them trying to get it right. And obviously, like the last movie that they did got absolutely panned and was classed as terrible or terrible adaptation of it as well. Sorry?
They did a movie?
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they attempted to make a movie.
Yeah, like 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, it was like quite. Yeah, it's quite a while back. But I remember that didn't really sort of receive positive sort of reviews on that. But again, as someone that hasn't got the background of it and sort of doesn't like, hasn't watched it before, I thought it was okay. I thought it was enjoyable. I think like you mentioned there, the visuals in there are amazing. Like when they're like you said, Otto was sort of designed really well, and obviously like when they were on the fire planet and stuff like that, all of the set designs and stuff like that like looked really amazing as well. Um, I just feel like I feel like what you're saying about like the whole like child actor thing. Like I feel like when they do like some of these like shows where it's like more centered on like kids and stuff like that, I feel like some of the dialogue just seems like a little bit over the top, or it seems like a little bit cringy, and I don't know, I just can't like really get into it a little bit. It just seems a bit too. Come on, guys, let's go and
Yeah.
do this like type of thing, and it's just I just can't get into it. So, but I do feel like the action was good. Story's okay. Again, like I never watched it as a kid, so I can't really like not really like too invested in the story of this as well. But it was just cool. It was cool to me.
It falls into my criticism, which I'll go in later. What you just said falls into my criticism, but yeah, I'll go in that later. Sorry, Daniel, what do you think?
So it sounds like we are spanning the entire range of background knowledge for this, because I've watched the first season of it and never got past it very far. So I've not seen the entire thing, and I hear that the first season is the weakest of all the three, and it really gets amazing later on. I like the animated show very well enough, and this one is a very mixed bag. So I was really excited in the opening sequence, where what was it? The Fire Nation attacks the Earth Kingdom or something like that. Because a fight between Earthbenders and Firebenders, which is a new scene. That is one of I think the only scene that is completely new. Everything else is a fairly faithful adaptation. I got really excited for that in that first scene. It was very kinetic, very gritty. For some reason, streaming shows have a problem with martial arts, where they just don't do them very well. Not all of it is bad as Iron Fist, but they almost never really reach the level of even average Asian productions. If you've seen a bunch of Hong Kong action movies, martial arts movies, it's just not impressive what they're able to do. Somehow The Matrix figured this out 25 years ago, but for whatever reason, Netflix and other streaming productions tend to kind of be lackluster when it comes to martial arts, and MCU is the same way. And that was really strong in the opening scene, and after that it fell off a sharp cliff for me. The big one is like really bad writing. Like the entire thing is just exposition, and it really suffers from being filmed on. I don't know if it's literally filmed on the volume, but it's very clear that it's filmed on something like this, where nobody ever interacts with anything, and everything looks very clean and new and freshly rendered, and the costumes look like they've never been worn before, and on top of that, I think the actor who plays Aang tries to the best of his ability, but I think the acting still drags it down. And I think that's I think a topic that we can get into in the spoiler section. But my big question was, what's the point of this? Like, there's a better version of this story already, so why do this other than as a cash in? I think people are too quick to call things cash grabs, but I think this is exactly what this is, right? They take a story that's popular and they make it with relatively high production values, but I don't really see any value add in this.
You say there's another story better than this. Are you talking about in terms of like the whole martial arts, genre? Are you talking about as in Avatar specifically? As in
like the original version of the story. Like the original version of the story is also on Netflix, and if you watch them side by side, they're the same story. Like not word for word, but it's very close. I think I don't know the story well enough to point out all the exact differences, but this is not a different take on the same story. This is just the same story done again, just in live action.
And I think that's it, live action. You know what I'm saying? I think people want to see this, a animated piece in human form. Do you know what I'm saying? I was the same with Dragon Ball, but Jesus Christ, I remember sorry for using Lord's Fate name in vain. I remember when they dropped the Dragon Ball movie, I was so disappointed. I don't think Goku turned Super Saiyan in that one, in the actual film itself. So that was done terribly as well. But yeah, I think people just always have that fascination, or they always want, you know, their childhood cartoons, animations, to just come to life. And I just literally, I think that's what it is.
So one
Well-
big difference here is that the tone is a bit different. So one thing that always kept, like, I never watched Avatar as a child. I'm not even sure when it came out exactly, but it's very very jokey and very playful, and and that was always a hurdle for me, because I just that was a hurdle for me getting really into it. Not that it's doing anything wrong or anything like that. It's more. I prefer things with a more serious tone, and this is basically the same story with a more serious tone, and I liked it on that level. It's just that every other aspect of the production is really really lacking, in my opinion.
But I feel like they do that with a lot of film and TV shows now. Like, you know, Disney have been guilty of that. Like, they just, when it comes to adaptation or just film and TV in general, they always, like I say, saturate it down. They always kind of like mature it down as well. I don't know why they've decided to go this route. I even remember when you mentioned something about Thor, how, you know, the character of Thor kind of had a drastic change. Like, his character wasn't this jokey Thor that's always trying to, you know, joke around. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a
Yeah,
like,
well, the Thor in the comics is not that kind of character, and he's much more mythological. Like, it's still a space fantasy, but it's there's a lot more mythological stuff going on. So that's a huge change to that character. But I think yeah, you hit on something there where just a few months ago they put out One Piece and everybody loved it. And I have not seen either the anime or the live action adaptation, but from what I've heard, one of the problems with One Piece is that it's really decompressed, where it's basically hundreds and hundreds of episodes, where in most of them not very much happens. And the Netflix version of One Piece appears to be essentially the same story, but only the highlights, so all the filler cut out. And I think that's a point where you can say, okay, this is version 2.0 of the story, and it's a more focused, like, if you like the basic story, but you don't have the patience for all the filler, that tends to be, from what I hear, is pretty common in manga. Then there's a point to that, because that is a different version of the same story, whereas with Avatar it just seems to be completely faithful recreation. And I like, generally, when I see an adaptation, I want it to be faithful. But if it's just remaking the same thing again, not exactly word for word, but very closely, I have to ask, what's the point of this? Especially if the first version is perfectly fine.
I feel like part of it as well is that I know, like, some people have difficulty getting into some of the animated shows. No matter how good it is, it's just that they can't get into animated shows. So I feel like part of it could be trying to, like, present it to a new audience as well, that, you know, typically probably wouldn't watch the animated version of this show. Essentially, but I'm of the same opinion of you. It's just, if you're essentially redoing the same thing over and over again, really, what is the point to all of it, in my opinion? And funny enough as well, I did hear, and I don't know whether you guys heard as well, that they were possibly looking to do, I don't know whether it was like an animated or like a live action version of it, but like them in their like 20s, like a little bit further along when they're adults. I feel like I saw that somewhere, that they were like looking to create that, and like something like that would be a little bit more interesting, where you're actually kind of like building out on the world, and you're like sort of like moving it forward and progressing the story. And
That's what I thought it would be. There would be like another story in the Avatar universe, but then it turns out, no, it's just the same story.
It's just the same thing, yeah, essentially. And again, like, someone that hasn't watched the animated show, I did watch the original movie that came out like 10 or so years ago, and again, it was pretty much some of the same things that were like happening in this, and it was just like, okay, I've already seen this before. Like, you're not really giving me anything new here.
but it's interesting though, because a lot of the complaints that people have with adaptations is that it's not accurate enough. So what are we saying? Are we saying that, okay, make it accurate, but as well add something new?
But not too accurate.
Okay.
No, like what you're saying, make it accurate, but not too accurate.
Okay.
No, I think there's a difference between a remake and an adaptation. Like, an adaptation changes mediums, right? It novels to movie, or comics to TV, or something like that. And I think, or video game to movie, or something like that. And I think in that there's a point, because the experience is different. Playing a game is different from watching a movie, even if it's the same world and the same characters. And reading a book is a different feeling than watching a movie. They're just different kinds of mediums. Whereas here, the only difference is one is animated and one is live action. And yeah, there are a lot of people who have this hang up where they just can't get over the fact that it's animated. But also, The Simpsons was almost 40 years ago, right? So there are so many. Like I don't really understand why so many people still have that attitude when there have been so many animated shows that have clearly been for adults and have been high quality.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
It's just what I feel. You know, again, not to mention Arcane, but you know I love Arcane and I try to recommend it to absolutely everyone that I speak to. But so many people are just like, oh, it's animated. Oh, I don't know about that. And I try to explain to them how amazing it is, but that just seems like a hurdle that I always seem to get when I recommend that show.
Yeah.
Does that justify a project like this? I say, okay, we have this amazing story, and many people are not getting into it, and we're basically limiting our market because people can't get over this the art style. So let's remake it as live action. Is that enough justification?
Probably not, and I don't believe for a second that's the main reason why they chose to remake it. To be honest, I don't think that's the main reason. That was just like maybe like one of the potential reasons for the adaptation. But no, it's definitely not, because how many new fans is this really going to pull in? How much money is it really going to make them adapting it from the animated show to live version?
It's hard to say because it's a really well-known story, but there might be a lot of people who either don't know that it's an adaptation and just put it on because it shows up because it's promoted and shows up in the recommendations, or people who maybe weren't of the right age when it came out and just missed it or something. I imagine one cashing in on the existing fan base is one part of it, and increasing the fan base because it's not animation is the other part of it. I imagine that's the reasoning.
What the hell are we still speaking of? We're speaking on Arcane or Avatar?
No, we're talking about Avatar.
Well, this specifically is Avatar, but like Arcane is this example of reportedly a really good story. Still haven't watched it.
Yeah, you need to watch it, man.
But yeah, a lot of people aren't even giving it a chance because it's animated.
I think you'd like. What is it? Actually, no. You said you didn't like it, but what was it? The Blue Eye Samurai something like that.
Yeah, well, I had different problems with that one. Well, not like I recognize that it's not to get too off topic too much, but I disliked Blue Eye Samurai just because it felt really roten by the numbers, as opposed to telling a compelling story. And I just got tired of it before the first episode was over. But that's not the same thing as saying I don't like the arts. I think the art style was gorgeous, and I could also see the quality. I just didn't get excited for it. But that's a different topic. With Avatar, it seems to me like the only difference. Well, the tone is slightly different, but that doesn't seem to be. I haven't seen anybody else mention this, and it's not. They're not advertising as that, right? They're not advertising it as the grown-up version of Avatar, right? They're just saying, "Hey, it's Avatar. You like that, right? Go watch it." And then the only real difference. So the only real difference is that it's not animated. And is that it?
So what was Netflix like plan for this? Are they just aiming this at a specific demographic where it's like, okay, we're just aiming this for the kids, or were they trying to make this universal for all age groups? Because if they're trying to make it universal for all age groups, then it's not it. Like, this isn't it. Like you guys are saying, it's literally the remake, and also it seems less. It just seems more childish. So
more childish.
Sorry.
More childish.
Yeah, more childish. And what I mean by that is because, like, for example, like, which kind of falls into my criticism, was kind of like the character's reaction in moments were lacking, like a lot, like especially like the moment where they saw Aang come out from the ice ball, and when they saw the waterbenders, like when the waterbenders saw Otto as well, like it seemed very bland, and it seemed very, like, even with the lines, like the dialogue seemed very childish. Like I remember when Aang dropped, right? So as soon as Aang came out from the ice ball, whatever it was, and then he fell down, they saw him, and then they just left. They're like, oh, okay. And then literally, like, it just felt very Nickelodeon. You get what I'm saying? Like, it just everything, like, just the humor, the interactions felt very Nickelodeon. So it was like, okay, this is being presented to us as this is for the kids, but I'm sure this wasn't supposed to be for the kids because of course, with the the amazing fight choreography. Like I thought, like I said, the fight choreography for me was amazing. Felt very gritty, and I was surprised how good it was. So I'm like, okay. So when I saw that first scene when the Fire Nation was with the Earth guy fighting against the Earthbender, whatever they called him, I was like, okay, this is looking looking different. Like this looks like it's going to be just different. It looks like it's going to be different. But then when actual Aang was introduced and whole interactions, it just felt very childish. It felt very Nickelodeon. So I don't understand who would they aim, like what was the demographic? Who would they aim in this series for? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
It seems like it's too not, it's not really serious in tone, but it's more serious, which seems like it would be less appealing to younger audiences, but it's still too childish for an adult audience. Like if it's the same story but from the point of view of adults or made for adults or something, that might, considering that how old is that show, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It says here 2005, so like like 17 years.
Yeah.
So people who watch this in their teens are now in their late 30s, early 40s. So you might say, okay, you have nostalgia for the story, but you don't want to watch the same thing you watched as a 15-year-old maybe. But so we remake it with the sensibilities of a 35-year-old or a 40-year-old. Like that I could understand, but it doesn't seem to do that either.
It's strange. It's strange. Like I'm just trying to understand like the business decisions behind giving the green light on some of these shows and films. Like, who's this for? You know what I'm saying? Like, just the way that you present it, the way it's been packaged.
I mean, in terms of investments, it's probably one of the safer ones, right? Because it's a well-beloved story. It has a huge fan base. There was a failed live-action remake, so you can present it as we did it. This is the one we got right. So I think that is why it was made, is because it's a safe, profitable IP that you basically can't screw up, and you can't really screw up if you just make the same thing again. Right? This is not like Dawn of Justice or something where you have a very specific tone and a lot of the audience doesn't like that tone, for example, right? Like this is just the same story. So in terms of giving people something to watch until the next billing cycle, I think that's the motivation behind it.
Okay. So what would you guys say was your highlight moments in the series, in episode 1?
I feel
The
like
martial arts. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I feel like you guys have touched on it. It's just like that opening scene, and again, like that whole like it feeling a little bit different, and sort of the intrigue of the sort of the Firebenders and the Earthbenders sort of fighting. The visuals behind it were sort of like really well done, and then I think everything after that was just kind of fell off a cliff after that. So that's my highlight.
It felt a little bit like a high school play.
Yeah.
Sorry?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Like the costumes look very cheap. The backgrounds all look very artificial, and the lines, like it's people standing, in front of each other saying lines. Like that was kind of my impression. And I think that has less to say about the actors and more about how Netflix makes movies, because that's like a general problem they have. But yeah, all kind of like none of these are really deal breakers. Right? I can deal with clunky dialogue. I can deal with hokey effects, but there has to be something really compelling about it. And to me, there just was like nothing. No aspect of it really rose to that level.
And this is why I'm disappointed, because, like we all mentioned, like the first scene was, it caught our interest, but then it kind of went Nickelodeon from there. And it's like, damn, like you guys, like the package is there, it's just not packaged right. Like I said, the VFX, just the whole visually, aesthetically, it looks amazing. The fight scenes are great. It's just missing that story, as in like the way that the story is being acted, the way it's being, performed. It's still stuck in Nickelodeon times.
I would disagree with that. For me, a huge problem was how it looks. Because
you don't like how it looks?
Yeah, I think the costumes just look bad.
Oh, I'm not necessarily
like everything looks brand new. Everything is perfectly clean. Nobody touches any prop, like, because there can't be too many, because that clutters up the volume. I think that is really what's holding this back.
But at the same time, I can't agree, because even in the animations, even though like we can't even in the animations, the costumes in that looked it looked new as well. So I don't necessarily.
You mean in the animated version?
Yeah,
But this is like the superhero tights argument again, right? Where in animation you can get away with simpler designs with lots of solid colors and stuff like that. And if you adapt that, if you just adapt that perfectly faithfully to live action, it looks cheap. Because that was like what early superhero movies were like, right? Where they just basically put people in colored spandex.
Yeah.
And it's over time they figured out that you have to add texture and you have to add detail that you wouldn't do in animation because it's too much detail and it's too busy. But in live action, you have to have that stuff, and you also have to make it look worn to the appropriate degree, whatever makes sense for the character, right? But just making, I think this is one example where it's too close to the original, and things like hairstyles or costume designs just don't look right and that's what makes it look like a theater production maybe, but not a good one. That's why I compared it to a high school play, because it looks like somebody who didn't really have the resources to do it properly, which I don't imagine this. I don't know what the budget for this was. I don't imagine it was cheap, but that's what it looks like to me. Because nothing is lived in, nothing has detail. Everything is too off the page without thinking about, okay, how does changing the medium work? Like, how does it impact the story and the characters? Because you have to think about that, right? You can't just do a one-to-one copy. You have to think about, okay, what's important, what isn't important, and what changes do we have to make this work in live action when the original was animated.
I actually hear where you're coming from now. Yeah, I definitely hear where you're coming from. I think they were just trying to be as accurate as possible, but at the same time, you are right. Like, it does make it look just. It doesn't make it looks unauthentic. It doesn't really look, yeah. It just, yeah. I definitely hear where you're coming from now. Yeah, maybe they should kind of like ruffle their feathers a bit, ruffle their clothes a bit. Yeah, I
like Ben comes like has been in a like in a block of ice for 100 years, and his monk robe looks like he's never worn it before. Why? And I don't remember the exact scene, but I don't think he had dirt on his face or anything like that. Like, everything is too pristine, too clean, too perfect.
Yeah.
I feel like we're just confused. Well, it seems like we're just like kind of like confused as to why this exists, to be honest. Like, and it makes it like really difficult to really critique it like that much. And I know that like not everything needs to be like this like massive like cinematic universe and this to any other or whatever like that, where you have like loads of different shows and stuff like that, or like movies that connect into like this one sort of like for this example like the Avatar world or whatever. But it really seems like, as you guys were mentioning before, like people watched this as a cartoon like 20 years ago, and in my opinion, again, someone that hasn't watched the cartoon, they kind of presented some things that were like maybe like interesting in terms of like obviously you had like the 4 separate things and how they interacted and stuff like that, and like that you had the Fire Tribe that decided that they then wanted to like take over and like sort of have like law and order and stuff like that, or like impose their order on the rest of the sort of the different tribes and stuff like that, and stuff like that like could be interesting, and again you can make it a little bit more mature and kind of match the age group of the original people that watched the original show. Like everyone's grown up, everyone's like 30 plus or whatever like that, so why not make something else within the universe that's a little bit more mature, or even like maybe even try to introduce a different avatar, because again they have talked about like the avatars and reincarnating over and over again and this and the other. Why not maybe introduce a new avatar? And I know people like that then raises questions as to like was it done well, was it faithful, this and the other. People might not like the adaptation and stuff like that, but I think, as we like mentioned in other episodes, if it's good enough, people will eventually become on board. And I just feel like it's just late to me. This is more of like what the problem of like Hollywood and just like the industry in general at times. It's just lazy cash grabs, and it's just like it's really uninspiring, and it's not really giving me much to want to like. It's not giving me the feeling that I actually really want to talk about this, to be honest. And I'm very curious to see. And it's on Netflix, and Netflix always push their new shows and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's going to do well. But I'm very curious to see how many people stick it through for the whole 9 or 10 episodes or however long the series is, and how many people actually watch this, and whether this is actually even a discussion maybe like a week or two from now, because there's nothing really that interesting about this, to be honest.
Yeah, currently in the UK it's number 2 for series.
which is
like, I don't know how factual their charts are, but assuming they have some relation to reality, it's the second most viewed show on Netflix at the moment. So people are watching it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the question really comes down to what's the appeal. Like if I think you can imagine all sorts of different ways in which you can either retell that story with, from a different perspective or in a different way, or tell a different story in the same universe or whatever. But just me as a viewer, even I'm actually kind of the perfect person to sell this to, because this is a story I've heard good things about. I never really got into the animated show, and this has a more serious tone than the original. So all of that, those are all pluses in my opinion. And just my main problems are, one, the quality issues, and number two, what's the point? Why am I not just watching the original then? And so much time and effort and money went into making this. What else could they have made? Right? It's kind of my thinking.
It's interesting because, like I said, who was this aimed for then? Was this for the kids? Was this for just people who've actually watched this before? Was this just they were just trying to make this? It was for everyone, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, the cynic in me just says, well, it just pops up, so you click on it, and a bunch of people watch and are entertained until the start of the month, when they charge for another month. I always try to give this stuff more the benefit of the doubt, because companies being greedy is kind of it's not a very useful complaint, because companies always want to make money and everything they do is to make money, but the choices they make and what they try to sell us is what's the interesting part, right? Every single thing has been, if ever enjoyed, has been made with a profit motive. So saying that this was just made for the money doesn't explain anything, because that's true for everything. But I'm really kind of baffled what the given that you're remaking this story, there could have been interesting choices being made. Like, you didn't have to do a completely step by step recreation of it, especially since not only is the first story still available and generally held in high regard, like there's nothing about like that first version that really was that people said, oh, I wish they had been able to do this. Like, if the original show had not been able to realize the premise properly, or ran out of money halfway, so they started cutting storylines, and this is an opportunity to do that properly, like something like that, right? Then I could see the appeal. And it's not just about what Netflix was thinking when they made it, it's also why we should care.
Back to like the actual show itself, in episode one thing that I was a little bit confused by, and again, I've not watched the animated show, as I've said so many times during this episode, but I was very confused by the firebenders' power, because I thought that they were manipulating elementals that already existed in the world, but it seemed like with the fire people, they were kind of just generating fire from anywhere. Obviously, like they were on, like for example, when they're on the ship in the middle of the ice or whatever like that. You've got like the furnace burning, and you got the coal and stuff like that, whatever going. But it just seems like, when Aang's flying away, it's like, oh, it's just like fire, and they generate fire from their hand. And is that accurate, or is that like poor adaptation? I don't know. It just seemed different from everything else. Like the earthbenders are bending earth, the waterbenders are bending water, and obviously the airbenders are bending air, and the fire people are producing fire from nowhere.
Well, I don't remember, because I watched this show many years ago. I have no idea. I just thought that they could just generate fire on the spot wherever they are. But yeah, I definitely hear where you come, because I think with Aang as well, I think the airbenders, they need I think they need to be in that environment. Even same with obviously waterbenders, they need to be in that environment where they can actually generate,
They don't create the water or the earth, they just shape it and move it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't know. I definitely see where you come from. I'm not gonna say I would have to watch the show again, because I'm not gonna do that. But that was a good point. Listen, I'm putting this emphasis on the target audience, because it kind of like, if I knew who their target audience was, it would help me. Like, my arguments would be different. If I know that their target audience was for the kids, I'd be like, okay, this is an amazing show. Like, it's got everything that kids would love. If this was target audience was for people who've actually seen the actual animation, and because they know that we're all grown ups now. So yeah, if it was for them, then I'd be like, acting not great. You guys are still stuck in Nickelodeon era. I don't understand the point. If this is a whole complete remake, you lot should have added your flavor, your twist, whatever. So yeah, that's why. It is. I just don't understand. I'm on the same opinion of you guys. I just don't understand the purpose for this, because they've literally made it the exact same besides the first scene, and it doesn't make sense. But it doesn't change or negate from the fact that for me personally, amazing fight scenes, iconic moments, done well, which was supposed to be iconic moments and visually amazing, but it's not for me. It's just not for me. Yeah.
And it's actually worse than the original. Like the dialogue and stuff like that is actually worse, I thought. I think maybe like we're judging this based on the first episode, so maybe 2 or 3 episodes in that they really find their footing. But I don't know. It's that one that isn't really an excuse, I don't think. And 2, like it's not only is it the same as the original, it's also slightly worse in most aspects. At least to me.
I have a question. Has anyone seen Cobra Kai?
It's on my list. I haven't yet.
Okay. Have you seen it, Jonathan?
No, and the trailers don't really look too convincing for me as well, which is why I've never kind of like explored that show. Is it good?
I mean, I enjoyed like maybe like the first season or 2 of that, and then I fell off of it. But I was like very like invested in that, despite it having like teenage actors and stuff like that, and again the dialogue being like extremely cheesy and very campy and stuff like that. And I was just like curious. I was gonna like ask a question from you guys, because like I'm trying to like rack it from my brain while I'm sitting here as to why the dialogue and stuff like that worked in that show for me, but it's just like not hitting at all in this show. And I can't put my finger on it why it does, but yeah. I just want to ask that, but clearly you guys haven't seen it, so never mind.
I like I said, I haven't seen Cobra Kai, so I don't know what the quality level there is. Here, it's less about what's being said and more about how it's being said. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of it is just really blatant exposition dumps, and I don't remember the original being like that. Mm-hmm. Right? Like there's this voiceover about about the 4 nations and who they advertise. Like that was the voiceover narration in the intro in the original, and I think that one is almost word by word copied. I think there's 1 or 2 like there's minor iterations, but it's basically the same thing. But then you have just this elder from the Water tribe just repeating it in dialogue, and
jarring. That was very jarring.
Which I don't think was in the original. And then half the dialogue is just people explaining the world to each other and explaining history to each other. And it's not even like Aang needs to be caught up, right? He has missed 100 years of history, and he needs to have things explained to him. But it doesn't feel like real people explaining history to each other. It feels like them reading the setting Bible, right, to each other, just explaining the world building and stuff like that. So that part is also just worse, which is weird.
I think the reason why you don't like this one is because everything else is good besides the dialogue. So I think you mentioned before you like the fight scenes, you think it looks visually good, but it's just the dialogue.
That's just the highlight, but everything else is pretty terrible.
Exactly. So I think it's the whole, I don't want to say acting, because these are child actors at the end of the day. So I think they're doing what they're supposed to do. They you know what I'm saying? That's how child actors perform. If you guys see Nickelodeon, they're doing a great job. So you kids are watching, they're doing an amazing job. But yeah,
I don't really blame the actors. It's a good package.
Exactly. I just think, like you said, is the way that it's packaged. Like everything else is great. Like the gritty, the fight scenes are gritty. The visually, for me, it looks good, and I think you said it looks good as well. But it's just the way that it's being performed in the setting is like the performance is not matching the setting. And I think with Cobra Kai, when I saw the trailer, it looked very TV. I wouldn't say it looked cheap. It kind of looked cheap, but it's
cheap.
What you'd get from like a that type of TV show or whatever it is, I'm saying? Like the acting matched the setting, but this one is no, like, it just doesn't match what it's being delivered on.
Yeah. And since we've been harping on about that aspect of it, what's your favorite remake that justifies its existence? Where I say, okay, this one added something new, or this one should have been remade, or it's a good thing they remade it.
That's a good question on the spot.
So for me, it's like, just to give you time to think about it, for me, it's probably The Blob from the 80s, where it was a science fiction movie in the 50s where they couldn't really portray the monster. And they had to cut away a lot, and they had to have people in rooms talking about it a lot. And by the 80s, special effects technology had come along well enough that they could realize the concept. So they could do it properly this time, essentially, and didn't have to cut corners that they had to cut before. I think both are quite good, but they're very different movies, and the 50s version is what it is because they couldn't pull off the monster the way they wanted to. And then 30 years later, they could. And that point is basically them showing off, saying, look what we can do now. And when you watch it through the lens of somebody who knows special effects, which is not me, but I've seen like video essays about it, it's like almost like they're just showing off, saying, look what we can do now. Look how many different special effects techniques we can cram into one shot to really make this monster live up to its potential. And so that's an example where you say, okay, that is a remake that justifies its existence because it fixes the problems or the compromises that had to be made the first time around. And then another example would be Battlestar Galactica, where the original was like it's a classic, but it's kind of a Star Wars ripoff. And the second time around, they took the basic story and then recontextualized it in like early 2000s War on Terror kind of sentiments. It's a very different story using the same characters and the same basic plot. And so you can't put those two next to each other and say, yeah, this is the same story, because they're tonally and quality-wise and in all the details, it's so completely different that they are basically different stories, to the point where you can argue about should this even be a Battlestar Galactica show, or should this have been something else, just something new with new names and new plot. But that remake justified itself by being a completely different take on the same basic story. So there are examples where remakes can work, and they all work in different ways. And when you apply that logic to The Last Airbender, it just fails on, like, no matter what test you apply, it doesn't seem to work.
I don't think I don't know if I've like watched the movie, like I like watched the original movie and then watched the remade version of it. I don't know. Are there any like recent examples of it where, cause like again, not to be a snob, I don't really watch too many movies prior to the 2000s, to be honest, for it to then have a remake. So anything that would have like come out in like the 2000s, 2010s, have there been any remakes? Off the top of my head, not one that I would have seen. Obviously both. Obviously I have like watched movies that are remakes of previous ones, like like for like Dread, for example. But I've not watched the original to like have that comparison and
And that's less of a remake and more of another adaptation.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think is different. Like the adapt, like with Dread, you have the source material, and then you have two adaptations of it that are just different takes on the original. It's not like the second Dread movie is a remake of the first Dread movie. They're both movies that adapt Dread.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, and I can accept that. So I don't think I've got an answer for you. Is my point.
So there have been a few, like this is at least the third anime adaptation that Netflix has made. One Piece was another one, and then Death Note was another one. And I haven't seen either of those two, so I don't really know. I know what their reputation is, but I don't know the details of it. But Death Note was really poorly received because apparently it gets a lot of basic things wrong about the characters and about the point of the story, whereas One Piece has been universally celebrated for getting it right, but it's like an updated version.
I haven't seen Death. I saw like a couple episodes of the actual animation version of Death Note, but I haven't actually seen the remake or One Piece yet. I'm gonna watch One Piece. In terms of your question, I haven't seen a lot of remakes. Was Jumanji a remake or was that an adaptation?
Remake. So there was the 90s movie, and then there was the 2010s movie.
Love the 90s.
And I don't know if it's the same story or not, but it's basically a remake.
Yeah, it didn't seem like it. I think
it's a quasi sequel, isn't it? Isn't it like the next generation discovering the game or something?
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I even like that, so I can't even answer your question because I even like the actual remake of the Jumanji. That's freaking awful.
Yeah, that seems to be more like one of those 20-year later sequels, which is a whole different topic, and I'm sure we can do a video about that one day. But unless I'm wrong about that, doesn't seem to be a remake exactly.
No, I don't think it is. No.
Okay, I thought it was a remake. It's going to be a remake coming out, Twister, which I'm interested in. Sorry, I'm going adrift, but yeah, I haven't seen a lot of remakes because I'm kind of like the same with Hervé. I haven't really seen a lot of movies before 2000. Of course, I've seen some 90s films, but I haven't seen a lot. So I wouldn't really know how to answer the question unless you were to say it, and then maybe I'll be like, oh, okay, I have seen that one. But I think, yeah, I can't answer that question because I haven't seen much before 2000. But I hear what I do hear where you're coming from, though.
We need to step up.
So it's not like we're category against remakes. I think there are examples where it works, but that's usually because there was an idea behind it, or because the first version was flawed in some important way that is being fixed now.
Mm-hmm.
Some adaptations are even like that, right? Like with The Expanse, that started out as a novel series and then got adapted into a TV show. And the TV show was written by the authors who wrote the books, and they basically treated it like a redo for the story, and they made a bunch of changes. Like some of that was because of the requirements of the mediums, like they merged minor characters so that they didn't have to hire dozens and dozens of actors. Things like that, but also they also introduced some characters earlier or later and changed some details around, basically because the first time they wrote it, they thought they could do it better, and the TV show was an opportunity to fix some things that they thought didn't quite work. And that includes like introducing some important characters earlier, so that you get more background on them by the time they become important to the plot. And that's generally been regarded as good choices. So, but that's not a remake, that's an adaptation. But my point is, when you do something like that, sometimes changes are a good thing if they fix something that didn't quite work the first time. And The Last Airbender doesn't even seem to get close to that, or doesn't even want to try, or they don't even seem to be things that are generally viewed as being broken about the first version. So it doesn't do that either.
I have a remake that I have watched, and it's basically similar to episode of the Last Airbender, the Lion King one, where you got the animated version and then you had the live action version of it. And I actually felt like the live action version of it was a little bit more limited than what you could do with the animated version, just in terms of like how you could like animate the different characters in the movie and stuff like that as well. So I feel like that's one where it was, what was the point? It was just basically just a cash grab. We're going to put Lion King in live version in the cinema, and people are going to go and pay to watch it, basically.
I mean, I finished the live action version, yeah. I finished that. Yeah, guys. Well, I don't know what else we can say to this. I was going to ask what your best performance is. I don't think you guys are going to have a best performance for this one. For me, it was Otto. Shout out to the child actors, though. Well, Otto is my favorite. He's my guy, man. He's my guy. Shout out Otto. But last thoughts, man. Unless anyone's got anything else.
Oh, sorry. Shout out Aang's Airbender mentor or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
He gave me a little bit of feels. He did okay. I'll give him a little shout out.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, unless anyone's got anything else to say, I think we should go straight to the last thoughts.
my main thought is why.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a snob about this kind of thing. Like I'm okay with remakes and reboots and new adaptations if there's a point to them. Okay. And my standards for that aren't terribly high. Just even though my standards are really low, this shows in terms of what's the point. This show still doesn't rise to that level, and it seems to even be worse in most aspects than the original. So why?
Okay. What would you rate?
I don't know. 5 out of 8.
Yes, okay. Your ratings are one of the most interesting ratings.
So, not terrible. Like I think if I just was watching this and I didn't know the original, I think it would be like I think I would still notice the quality issues and the limitations of the production circumstances, all of that. But it would be like it's still a good story. It's just not like the immediate comparison to the original, I think, is what kills it. And the flaws are too egregious to just be enjoyable. Like, it's not even a nostalgia trip because you're constantly being reminded about how it used to be better. And I'm not even saying this is a fan. Like, this is just like I've watched not even the entirety of the first season, and I can still see the differences. Like, if you are a huge Airbender fan, I imagine all of these little issues are much more grating than they are for somebody whose interest is more casual in this, such as for myself.
Oh, Herbert, what about you? Last thoughts and ratings?
I will give it a 5 out of 10. I'm probably one of the people that they were hoping to convert. As someone that hasn't watched it, they've made a sort of an updated version of it, which is meant to be a little bit more appealing and maybe draw me in. But there's nothing about it that makes me want to go ahead and finish the rest of the season. I don't think there's enough interest in Aang's journey that he's about to go on in terms of like learning all the different elemental bending techniques or whatever like it's called in the show. I don't think I care enough about like the villain or like the villain's son and like his problem with his dad and this, that, and the other. He just seems like another spoiled brat kid. And again, that might change in later episodes, but I don't really like care about that either. There's nothing really in here that's like kind of like pulling me in and being like, oh, I've like missed out on watching the Avatar: The Last Airbender as a kid, and I need to watch this to sort of kind of catch up and be included in the conversation. There's nothing there for me, so 5 out of 10.
Well, for me, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10. Look, I still don't think this was targeted for me. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know who it was targeted for. So I don't think I will continue watching this. But if I did, then I wouldn't be mad because I do think other elements of the show I did like I said, the choreography. So I'm kind of interested to see what the fight scenes are going to look like. Those were the only moments for me where I was more, engaged into the actual series. But it's like I said, it's not for me. So that's why I kind of gave it like a 6 because I think other elements of the actual series is what is getting that kind of rating more so than unfortunately the dialogue and the way that it's presented. But yeah, I'll give this one a 6.
Probably background TV, where you're doing other things and it's just playing in the background. You might see an action scene and you might pay attention to that, but overall you're kind of not really that invested in it, and you're just kind of just background TV.
Exactly.
So, question for Hervé: did this make you want to watch the original? And question for Jonathan: did this make you want to revisit the original?
No.
It did make me want to watch the original.
No.
I still don't care about Avatar or The Last Airbender.
No, not at all.
I actually did go back and watch maybe episode 6 or something of the first season, and I think I might keep going this time. I've always kind of thought the idea was neat, and it's a quality story. It's so if this has done anything, it might cause some people to go back to the original.
Yeah, cool.
To be honest, I do hear a lot of people like, again, a lot of the talk online is about how amazing the original was and like some of the themes and obviously like the character development that some of the characters do go through. So if anything, it's more the talk online that would make me want to actually go and watch it as opposed to what they actually delivered, to be fair.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you for watching today's episode. What are we discussing next week?
Dune.
Yes, Dune.
Dune. Can't wait.
Dune Part 2, very excited. A little bit trepidatious.
Trepidation?
I'm not used to.
No, you gotta tell me what that means. You gotta tell me what that means. Trepidatious. What that mean?
Like a bit scared.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not used to things. I'm used to things starting well and then immediately crashing and burning. Whereas this is kind of like, it's almost an underdog story where it's this unfilmable story that it's the second time it's been adapted. Everybody thought it was unadaptable. The first part came out during COVID, which didn't exactly kill it, but which was a strong headwind. And now the second part is coming out, and there's this massive enthusiasm from all sorts of people, and not just book fans. So I kind of want them to keep going and do the entire 6-book series, because it really gets weird, and I want to see how general audiences react to that. Because there's some weird stuff in there. Like it's like if you thought part 1 was weird, you've seen nothing yet. But yeah, I'm like, at minimum, it sounds like we'll get a good adaptation of the first one, and then hopefully it keeps going after that. But I don't trust it until I'm walking out of the cinema and I have tangible proof that it's done properly. Like, I've been burned so often about this. Like, I have even given up on the concept of hope when it comes to movies, where I don't get hyped for anything. I wait until it comes out, and then, if it can exceed my expectations, that's great. But I don't get excited for stuff like this anymore in that way, the way I did maybe 10 years ago. But Dune is kind of the one where I'm making an exception. So I really hope I don't get burnt on this. And so far, there's no reason to think that it will be a letdown.
Daniel's like a girl that's had so many heartbreaks in her life, and she's finally found a good man, and she's still hesitant. She's like, all the signs are positive, but previous experience is holding you back. But hopefully it's good.
It is very much like that, yes.
Yeah. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good. Everything that's come out of it.
Zack Snyder has broken my heart so many times.
I mean, all the signs are positive for it. Like, I mean, the fact that they released the review embargo, I think about like 2 weeks before the movie came out, shows that they had like strong faith in sort of the movie that they were putting out. Everyone has described it as a masterpiece so far, and like one of the best films of all time. So expectations are very high. And again, like, as someone that's just recently rewatched the first movie, where I didn't quite pay attention and get it the first time, but second time watching it, I was very much on board. I am more than ready to sort of go back into this world and explore. I'm actually really happy that I rewatched it now and I don't have a long wait to watch part 2. Yeah, that's probably the best part about rewatching part 1 now, is not having that long wait.
And it's a good sign when the more you engage with her story and the more often you watch, the more sense it makes and the better it is.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you got dazzled by the dialogue and the special effects the first time around, but every time you watch it, it holds up less well. Like, there's a lot of movies like that out there, and Dune doesn't seem to be one of those. Like, early Game of Thrones was the same way, and that is one of the times I had my heart broken. But it's just really rare for a movie or for a story to get better the more you engage with it, and I think Dune is on that list.
Do you know what would be a good episode, Monday episode? Every time Daniel's had his heart broken, or every time we've had our heart broken going into a movie, that would be a very good, interesting episode.
That's the story of the 2010s for me. Like, literally, like, there are very few exceptions. Like, the MCU is probably the only exception. Everything else has crashed and burned. Everything that started out promising or that I got excited about in that decade, MCU is the only one that delivered in the end. If you pretend it ended with Endgame, but everything else, Game of Thrones, DCEU, the Witcher series, Star Trek, Star Wars, all of it crashed and burned for no good reason. But that's a different story. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I try to not get excited about stuff. And if it comes out and it holds up, then that's great. But building up hope and anticipation is not something that's really paid off in recent years. I'm glad we're seeing an exception.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thanks, guys. And thank you for you guys who've been watching, and girls. But yeah, we'll be here next week. Hervé, do you want to plug in your?
Yeah, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, of course.
And yeah, guys, thank you. We will catch you next week. Au revoir.
Ciao.
Bye.